shining every day all along the way. There's a rainbow of perfect love.
Before we go to our lesson, Paul wrote to the church at Corinth to correct them. First, he asked them to be united. 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 10. Secondly, he taught them to live a life of purity. Third, he taught them to love one another. He discussed the issues concerning the spiritual gifts and how they should live as Christians, because he called them the saints at Corinth. In chapter 13 of the book of 1 Corinthians, he spent the entire 13 verses explaining the importance of love. In verse 13, which we've taken today as our text, Paul speaks about three powerful virtues that every Christian should have, hold so dearly. The first dimension is faith. The second is hope. The third is love. These three qualities defines our journey here on earth as Christians, as we journey towards God. But Paul singles out one out of these three to be the greatest. And of course, in this lesson, I will want us to look at why love is the greatest. Before we go to love, let's look at faith. You see, as Christians, everything begins with faith. Hebrews 11:6. He said, without faith, it is impossible to please God. In fact, Christianity begins with faith. It is faith that draws us close, leads us to obey the gospel, and help us to add to this faith virtue, knowledge, brotherly kindness, perseverance, and so on and so forth. Faith is the foundation of our relationship with God. According to Hebrews 11:1, it contains two components: evidence and substance. It is through faith that we believe in the saving grace of Jesus Christ. And of course, that's why we are here this morning. We are partaker of this grace. In Ephesians 1:13, it said, we are saved through the word as we obedient to the word of truth. So faith is very key. Faith moves mountains. Faith is the victory. In one of our song, faith is the victory. You see, if one does not have faith, life will be meaningless. There are a lot of things that we must live by faith. Of course, our economy as a nation, we are surviving by faith. If we want to explain and try to analyze our economy as it goes, then we are going to lose faith and lose hope and be helpless. The next that Paul mentioned in verse 13 is hope. And this hope is our expectation of future glory. In Romans chapter 5 verse 5, Paul tells us that hope does not disappoint. Hope does not disappoint. Because, according to Paul, the love of God has been poured out in our heart. What is it that hope does? Hope keeps us grounded, especially in trials. through difficult times, we know that these two shall come to pass. Yes, for those who were running the economy when Abacha was our president, it was as if things or the nation will have come to an end, at least for the most of the citizens. There are those who benefited from that regime. So also here, as we cry and cry tears, there are those who are also benefiting from this economy. But the good thing is that hope keeps hope. Our hope keeps our faith alive. But let's go to that which matters. According to Paul, the greatest is love. And I want to bring our mind back to Genesis chapter 4. See, hatred is dangerous, both physically and spiritually. What hatred does is that it destroys one from all front. And that is, for here, is the opposite of love, isn't it? In Genesis chapter 4, Cain killed Abel. The question for what? What? For what? Please, listen. Even though Cain killed Abel, Cain could not use the glory of Abel. When one is destroyed by another, yes, you might have succeeded in destroying that person, but his glory, her glory, you can't use it. It's not for you. God did not say, well, now that you have eliminated this man, your sacrifice is now the standard. No. That didn't happen. Paul declares that love is greater than both faith and hope. You see, as Christians, we believe that we have faith in God. And of course, our hope in Him is so strong. To us, most times, it's so strong like the rock of Gibraltar. We believe we have this faith. But Paul is saying that the validity of faith is seen in love. Love reflects the very nature of God. In 1 John chapter 4 verse 8, he says, God is love. But it interests you to know that love is not God. But God is love. Love is not just something God does. It is who He is. When we love others, we are participating in the essence, in the very nature of God, in His character. That is His core character. Jesus summarized this by saying, the greatest of all the commandments, the first is to love God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our strength. And the second is to love our neighbor as ourselves. Why is love the greatest? Love is the greatest, we have said. But we want to look at why. Love is the fulfillment of the law. I hope you know. Romans 13:10. If you want to fulfill the law, all of them, whether it's the 10th Decalogue or 722 broken down of the law by the Jewish leaders, According to Paul, in Romans 13:10, love is the fulfillment of the law. He went ahead to argue that if you love someone, you will not speak evil against that person. If you love someone, you will not cheat the person. Covetousness. Love is the central key of Christianity. Unlike faith and hope, which will eventually be fulfilled, it has an end. Faith and hope has end. I hope we know. Faith, hope has end. But love, we need it both here on earth and over there in the New Jerusalem. In 1 John chapter 4 verse 20, John said, you cannot love God that you cannot see. There is no way you will love God you cannot see when you hate your brothers and sisters that you can see. Acts of Apostles chapter 9 verse 36. Here we saw a widow, Dorcas, the Peter, whose life can be characterized as the essence of God Himself. In her love for God, she decided that the little she could do is to knit clothes for widows. Perhaps she is in that shoe as well. She understood very well what this category of people pass through. She has no time to begin to look at who is doing it right or who is not doing it right in the church at Joppa. No, she has no time. What she told herself to do, as far as she still has that breath in her life, was to impact positively to others. And the Bible described her that she was full of good deeds or good works. Do you think that every member of Joppa appreciated maybe her lifetime what she was doing? Did you think that there were not some other people who asked, you don't get work? Maybe some might have discouraged her by either words or actions. Paul knew about that when he said, do not be weary in well-doing, because at the end, you'll be rewarded. See, we live in the time where everyone is busy for self. Parents, children, we are moving in a very fast pace. Me, myself, and I. Even in the family level, there is unhealthy competition. When I say family, I say biological families. Unnecessary altercation. Fights. Whether physical, diabolical, and every means necessary. That is exactly the generation in which we live in. And very quite unfortunate, even in the brotherhood. We still have unnecessary bickering, fighting. The question is this: what will be my gain if I spend all my life fighting you? Then at the point of death, I realize that you are all that I need. That's a waste of time. Let me itemize this as I step down. Love is the greatest because Jesus Christ said so. Matthew 22 verse 37 through 40. Love is the greatest because you cannot love God and hate man. It's not possible. 1 John chapter 4 verse 20. Love is the greatest because when we love ourselves, the world will know that we are true Christians and we are serving a living God. John chapter 17 verse 20 through 22. Love is the greatest because love and peace go together. Romans chapter 12 verse 18. Love is the greatest because love covers multitude of sin. Proverbs chapter 10 verse 12. Love is the greatest because it is eternal. It is selfless. It is rooted in the very nature of God. Love, the love we practice here on earth continues forever, shaping our relationship with God and others, both here and in heaven. To conclude, in John chapter 3:16, we were told that God so loved the world. If you are here at the sound of my voice and you've not been baptized, I want to beg you that you should not waste time. See, one of the serious, precious capital we have is time. You can't reverse the time. We have no control over time. We only align ourselves with the opportunity God has given to us. Paul wrote to the church at Ephesus and said, redeeming the time, for the days are evil. If you are here and you've not been baptized, you are taking the love of God for granted. You see, one of the saddest aspects of human history is that we don't learn from history. Hebrews 9:27 says, it is appointed unto man to die once, and after that, judgment. I began with the story of deathism. At the point of death, people realize that the most important thing in their life is not their certificate. The important thing in their life is not their achievement. The most important thing in our lives is not how many places we have traveled. It is how many lives we've improved. How many lives we have impacted positively. How many souls we have helped to be on the right path. That is the most important thing. Because at the point of death, ability to choose is removed forever. So if you are here, you've not been baptized, today might be the greatest day to make the right choice. Exploring and utilizing this love that made God to send His only Son to come to die, to redeem us. If you are here, you've been baptized. Remember, it is your faith that drew you close to God. That faith created hope. And now we are saying this morning that love is vital, is the greatest. In fact, Paul said in verse 1, if I can speak in the tongues of angels and can discern all knowledge, but I have no love, then my Christianity is a waste. As we pursue Christ, let us cultivate a love that mirrors God's love for us. A love that is patient, love that is kind, love that is selfless, love that is eternal. Remember, as we live here today, that the greatest of these is love. Let love be the mark of your life and your relationship with others. For in love, we reflect God Himself.